You sharp, yeah, kotola.
Yeah, ngapha thina kuyagodola.
What's the temperature like?
I don't know, but actually in the UK. No, it's sunny. It's sunny.
Yeah. But yeah, so thank you. I think first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. I read your book, and for me, it was just, it moved me in so many ways. Like the characters have remained in my head, and I find myself wondering, Uti, if things had been maybe a bit different for so and so, how, if maybe a stroke of luck or something, how it would have been like a different outcome, And I find myself just constantly just replaying scenes in my head, replaying the characters, and you write so in such a way that a person, like an reader, can build up the character like in their head. And for me, that's something that sticks. And for me, that's something that's really powerful. But I was also just reading a little bit about you. I love how you kind of describe yourself as a storyteller by passion and an analyst by profession. This is not, Gold Diggers is not your first book. You wrote The Polygamist, which was released in 2012, and Gold Diggers was released in 2018. So I think there was just, I read the book and I just felt like I needed to have more of a conversation with you. And I think Nat's just currently reading the book as well. Just to kind of really delve into you as a person. Who is this person who writes these characters? Who is this person who has written such a story? Detailing, first of all, it's set in 2008, where there was quite economic turmoil in Zimbabwe, and as a result, there was such a surge of economic migration into neighboring South Africa. People who traveled illegally, and how they have kind of set up their lives in the city of gold, as it's so called. But it also gives us a running commentary on social issues that are quite prevalent in Zimbabwe. And I found that quite interesting, that whole mix, because when you're reading your book, there is such a feeling of nostalgia, you get that. And then there's so many triggers, you read something and it shocks you. There's times when I listen to it on Audible, and there's times I'll be going out for a walk and I'll stop in my tracks and I'm like, oh my goodness, like how has this actually happened? But, and I loved how you set the scene in that it's just it's a quantum, it's a body of people traveling into South Africa, and how the interpersonal relationships that they have in South Africa, the turmoil that they have experienced and the turmoil that they continue to experience. Because in a way, it's like sometimes I don't know, it's better the devil that you know, because you never really know what lies ahead. But can you tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to write this book? Like, what was your thought process, and why did you particularly pick 2008 as a time frame to talk about the troubles or the challenges that Zimbabweans faced?
Okay, so I'll start with 2008. Why 2008? Because that's when I left Zimbabwe. So for me, it was a nice starting point in terms of, because that was, there've been lots of periods of migration from Zimbabwe to other places, and 2008 was one of those significant ones. But this is not to say people didn't leave before they did, but 2008 I think was like the most significant time, because it was like at the height, of the demise of the Zimbabwean economy. Also, we thought we'd reach the bottom, and then you get to 2020 and you realize we're still not at the bottom. So what inspired me to write the book was I'd been living in Johannesburg when I arrived here in 2008, like a few months after I arrived, the first xenophobic violence broke out in Alexandra. And at that time, I was living in a suburb called Lombardy. And you could actually hear the guns at night. It was from where we stayed. And so that was like the first sort of encounter. I mean, look, I was far removed from it, but I could hear it. And then you could also, on the news, it was covered. So it was like the first big xenophobic outbreak. And then we had subsequent ones later as well. And I think at the time, it must have been around 2012, 2013. And people were talking on radio stations about it, calling in, people saying, these people should just go back home. What are they doing here? They've got their own country. They should sort out the issues. And so I felt like, I needed to explain why people were here, and why some of them can go back. I mean, why it's not just a simple thing. But, some things you can't say, on a radio show for like, 30 seconds or even in a tweet. So I thought I need to write a book, at my own leisure. And then I can actually really, spell it out as to why people are here. And so that's how the idea for the book came about. So it was in response to the xenophobic violence. Yeah.
It's interesting that, so 2008, where all the, there was a rise again in xenophobic attacks in South Africa. And I really like that you talk about how you wanted to detail the journey and the kind of why people actually moved away from the economic troubles, to kind of to give the why, basically, as to why people are in South Africa. And, do you feel like things have kind of changed in the last few years in regards to xenophobia? Because, it seems to kind of go in like stages, where 2008 there was a spike, and then I think there was another spike in 2015. And the numbers do seem to be rising in 2019. Do you think things are, is there better understanding of that as Africans, that people are coming to South Africa for refuge? And it's not there just to take people's jobs, to take people's women, which is, again, something that you mentioned in the books, that, there is that kind of ongoing commentary of, these people or foreigners are here just to take our jobs, to take our women. Do you feel like things are changing, or do you feel like things will change in the future?
No, I don't think things are changing. If anything, I think they're getting worse. I mean, if you're on Twitter, I'm sure you've seen that hashtag Zimbabweans must fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the xenophobic sentiment is now increasing. And for me, I think there's a strong correlation between the performance of the economy and xenophobia. So each time the economy is not performing, you will have a huge backlash. And you can see it from 2008 as well. That was like at the height of the global recession, but because also economy wasn't performing. So it's the same thing. So, and it's the same thing now. COVID, the economy is not performing. So people will lash out, and they'll lash out, the foreigners first. And so I don't think it's, improving. I think we've tried to make people aware. I mean, a lot of people who've read the book have said to me, oh, I wasn't aware. This is the reason. Thank you for enlightening us.
Yeah.
Maybe this book should be taught in schools so people understand why. Yeah, so there is that realization. But there are people who do interact with other people from African countries, and they tend to be more sympathetic as well.
Yeah, of course. One of the other things that I kind of felt came across quite strongly for me was human trafficking stroke child prostitution, or how many children who are trafficked end up in things like child prostitution. And the story of Gugulethu kind of really touched me. And it brought me back to kind of thinking about how when we were in Zimbabwe, we were always kind of told, when we're growing up, like, don't get into strangers' cars, don't play too far away from home. And we see that with Ugogo Gugulethu, in that she always, the way that you painted that picture, that, she was called once, she was there by the gate, she wouldn't play too far away from home, and all these kind of protective mechanisms that Gogo put in place for her. And then she's put into this quantum, she's on her own, gets into South Africa, and her parents are not there to pick her up. and subsequently she is then sold by Melusi and give more into, she's sold into like child prostitution basically. Can I ask like what your thought process was, and why did you feel like it was important for that to be highlighted? Because I have to be honest and say that I never really thought about child trafficking or child prostitution and human trafficking before, but you gave it a voice and you brought it to such light for me, and it made me really open my eyes and think, oh my goodness, the number of times we have heard of people putting kids in buses or in combis going to South Africa, going to other places. I know there's a lot more laws in place now to kind of protect children. But why did you feel like it was so important to kind of highlight it in your book?
Okay, it was important because like all the stories, okay, even though The Gold Diggers is a fiction novel, all the underlying stories are real. So the story of child trafficking is a very real one. And at some point, you know, the Home Affairs Minister, Umalusi Gigaba, introduced the unabridged birth certificate. And it was because of that, you know, people were, you know, trafficking kids. And unfortunately, you know the story. A lot of Zimbabweans are here. They can't take time off to go and see their children.
Yeah.
Christmas holidays, most of them are working in restaurants. It's 24/7. You don't get leave. So what do? You want to see your children. You want to spend time with your children.
Yeah.
You put them in a combi lomalacha. Is your link to getting kids here. And these kids travel alone, unaccompanied. And anything can happen to them. My nephew, I'll use an example. He was traveling alone from Zim. He was dropped off in Petersburg, but his destination was Johannesburg. Luckily, he was found, but these things happen. So I wanted to highlight that, you know, although we shouldn't take it for granted, you know, that, okay, we understand why they're doing it, but there are inherent dangers as well in that passage for the kids coming. And every day here you hear about children that disappear. And because people have become so desensitized to it, you know, it's like, it's another child, another statistic. If I put a name to the child, you'll remember. And Ukukuletu stayed with so many leaders. Even after they finish, they always think of Ukukuletu. And that was the point. You know, try to put a face to something, and then you'll be more empathetic about it, more vigilant. You know, that some of these things rules put in place are meant to protect us, because children do get violated.
Yeah.
And just sort of like picking up on the Gugulethu story, like, it's like Xolie said, I'm halfway through the book, and that touched me. And I sort of, so the image that you paint, like when Ugogo leaves Ukukulethu in Mac's garage, I don't know, that sort of stayed with me, because, you know, Mac's garage was like, you know, I went to like primary school, Escotini and stuff, so like that was our route home. And I think it really kind of showed like almost the desperation that people have when you send your child home. So when you send your child abroad, or to the UK or whatever, even at 15, at 16, like so many parents, grandparents have had to, you know, let go of their children, literally hoping for the best. And I thought you sort of painted that picture well, because we see like, you know, Ugogo was such a cornerstone figure for Ukukulethu. So I just thought, have you had any, like you say, those stories are true, but I thought it was really good that you sort of like painted that voice. So have you had sort of any feedback from people sort of saying, oh, this, you know, this touched me, but maybe the stories didn't turn out like Ukukulethu, but, you know, like the dangers, as you said, that you highlighted?
No, they did. I mean, a lot of people had to leave when they didn't want to leave. It was painful. It's that parting. So it's that poignant moment of, you know, realization, you know, that you're torn from everything that's familiar. Like Xolie was saying, the protectiveness of Zim. You always felt safe, you know, but now you're thrown into this deep ocean. So a lot of people can relate to that. Being snatched away from, you know, the bosom of safety.
So in regards to you, about safety. You're talking about safety, and you highlighted in your book about how home is not really a safe place for many children and many women as well. How do you get into a space to write about things like child abuse, sexual abuse, and I think thank you for actually giving all these things a voice, because I think when we're coming from Zimbabwe, where things are not really talked about. Growing up, I remember just one advert talking about sexual abuse, it's Uncle John. That's the only thing that I remember. And there is so much, there's so many cases, and it may not just be, they may not result in pregnancy, they may not result in someone being expelled from school, but there's so many incidents of children, women being abused in homes, whether it's sexually or whether it's domestic violence or whatever it is. But so my first question is, how do you get into a space and write about these things? How do you look after yourself? Because I was traumatized reading some of the things that you wrote about. But then I can then step away from that. But how do you keep in that space and paint such a picture that can touch me as a reader? And the second question is, with the incidents and the prevalence of sexual abuse in Zimbabwe, whether it's from children or from women, like, how do you feel like women are being supported? Do you think that things have changed from 2008 up until now? Do you feel like there is a lot more? Do people have a bit more of a voice to kind of talk about the abuse that they have suffered?
Okay, so for me, when writing about abuse and any kind of traumatic experience, I sort of have to like immerse myself into it, and that itself is traumatic. So in a lot of times it's like acting a role, going into a role basically.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be that person, you have to be in that situation, and it is traumatic. And some of those scenes that I wrote in the book, I was actually crying when I wrote them. So I often say when people cry, I was also crying, so I also felt the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of get into it as well as a writer, and it's like getting into character. And then after you've taken it out, then you can I can go back to being Sue again.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think, the problem with Zim is we love to have this veneer of respectability. It's like we're always keeping up appearances. So nobody ever talks about those things. They're always shoved under the carpet. So people go around, no, Zim men are not violent. No, Zim men are this, and it's something we don't talk about. And I think it's time we did start talking about it. And with literature, you can start interrogating those things. So when Chinai's dad rapes Uchinai, that whole thing was twofold. We highlighting one, the abuse, but Uchinai's dad as well was supposed to be like an Umgabe, was supposed to represent Umgabe.
Right.
And in a way, he raped the people of Zimbabwe.
Right.
And that's why they left. They were forced to leave. So it's like a twofold thing, because it was violent. The way we were treated. It was violent, and that's what forced people to also leave. It's just the same situation where you're supposed to be safe in your own country as a citizen. You should feel you have rights. You should feel protected, but they were abused. And so it's the same thing. Yeah.
And as a result of that violence, the broken or dysfunction of families that is caused by migration is also highlighted in your books. So even like to continue with Chinai and Chamu's story, for example, so they go to South Africa to their mother, and their mother doesn't really. She feels that they're strangers, and I'm thinking as well about Dumi and Christine, who Dumi's story is also just, it takes its own. It has a life of its own, but then you see again the dysfunction of his family and how his breakdown of a relationship with Christine and his children. Your book also highlights just how migration creates family dysfunction, and Nat has written about how they robbed us and how people moved away from, or how, like, you know, parents moved away from Zimbabwe in the hopes of kind of supporting their children. And then as a result, you have these Western Union babies. You know, it's just more of a transactional relationship. But something that we don't really get to know in the book, and I'm sure it's maybe intentional, is Chennai's story is not really, you don't really delve into it, her relationship with her mother. Obviously, we see that it's a little bit problematic initially when she's like looking for a job. And then Chennai is obviously, again, she is raped by her employer's husband, and she leaves that job. But there is no dialogue to say that they have that relationship with her mom, to kind of say, you know what, this is what has happened to me in the past, and this is what has happened to me now. So you see the strain in relationships. I don't know, was that intentional to kind of say that it was a difficult relationship, or that, you know, people continue to have difficult relationships the longer they are apart? What were your thoughts on that?
They had a difficult relationship in the sense that, you know, the mom left them when they were young, and they were basically left to fend for themselves. And for a lot of, you know, people who've left home and are reconciled with their parents much later, you know, a relationship doesn't just get formed, you know. A lot of people, it's money being sent to them, like, you know, your Western Union babies. But there is no relationship. You just talk on the phone, but you really don't know each other. You are strangers. And how do you bridge that gap? And the way our culture is set up, you know, there's already a distance. And if you don't try to cultivate a relationship, it's very hard. I mean, where do you start? You know, and I think I was just trying to show how difficult it was. You know, where do you start, actually? The question.
Another theme that came across that touched me personally, had me triggered, was Christine. Like, so Christine is Duni's wife. Eventually, she gets an opportunity to come to UK. She does her nurse training, but there's a point where you describe this, like, she's clearly depressed. You know, you talk about how she doesn't want to get out of bed, she doesn't want to eat, she doesn't want to socialize. Her mind is constantly at home with her children, who she can't even be with, because Dumi has one, like, I guess paternity, I don't know, what do you call it? He's one visitation rights or whatever it is. So he has ownership of the kids, and she doesn't have that. She continues, like, you know, you also describe about how she's working double shifts sometimes, you know, and she's just constantly seems to be just trying to make a better way for her kids back, or for her family back in Zimbabwe. And her mom, or her friends' moms, seem to be living quite lavishly as a result of the pound. And then, of course, 2008 hits. You've got that 1-to-1 exchange rate. Why did you think, like, it was like depression? Why didn't you talk about depression for somebody in South Africa, like Portia, for example? Why did you put Christine, her in London? Like, why did you make that relation that, you know what, people, when they come to the Western countries, which is true, when they do come to the Western countries, there is a higher rate of depression amongst people who are here than in Western countries than those back home. But I'm just curious as to why you didn't think about depression in South Africa, for example. Not that it's not there, but it's more highlighted with Christine.
Okay, for me, I think I've just seen it more in people overseas, you know, or maybe they speak about it more, and I think it's because of the distance from home, you know, and the abject isolation and the long hours as well. I mean, I have friends in the UK, and I visited them, and I think life in the UK is different. Where, you know, for professionals, it's a better life than for someone who's doing shift work. So, you know, it just depends as well what how you land in UK as well. That will impact how your life pans out. And so, you know, I also wanted to tell that story, that a lot of people in Zim don't appreciate, you know, like, they don't value imad, you know, and someone works so hard for pound, you know, like, and the way they spend that money, not knowing what has gotten, you know, for a person to just earn that pound.
Yeah.
And I think that also depresses people. And the demands, the never-ending demands. So, I just felt I needed to highlight, that also the UK migration also was equally tenuous.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. So just kind of piggybacking off that, I think that's actually accurate. I think, like you say, the distance, the weather. I think the way we're socialized at home is we gravitate more to South African culture naturally because it's the music we hear. I was interested in the Swongile story, so that we find that initially she sort of didn't disclose that she's Zimbabwean. And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts. I mean, we've spoken about this before, how people from Bulawayo and Ndebele speaking people, I'm just interested in your thoughts about how people from Bulawayo and Ndebele speaking people integrate in South Africa, because we have that familiarity, the language is familiar, but that feeling of thinking, okay, this is naturally a place that I belong, but then actually finding that, oh, well, actually, no, I am still a foreigner, even though, my history sort of says generations back, we come from here. So I was just interested in that, in, what your thoughts were when you were writing Swongile in that story.
I think it's always easier for Ndebeles generally coming this side to integrate. I mean, the names are the same, and that's why a lot of them were able to get IT books, and you become South African and you soon get another system. But Lako, there's also pressure, because like you say, you'll never be, you can't acquire that South Africanness. You always have who's Zimbabwean in you. So then you're also leading a double life. And I think there's that pressure of being, you found out, you have to be pretending all the time. And I think that takes its toll on people.
Yeah.
So it's, the thing is, it's a thin line. It's easier to get a job if you've got so you want to have those papers, but then it means you have to hide, parts of yourself, and it's a struggle for some people trying to balance that, between the two. And I guess with Swongile, like, she was trying to assimilate into the new world. She was just trying to survive, I guess, and that's probably what it is for most people. Survival.
Yeah, I think you see that, like, even like, I think we've spoken about this in a few of our podcasts, like, I think being your whole self and illusion of inclusion, where you go into a space and you try to fit in, and where people do not accept you for who you are. Like, everything is fine up until they see, you can maybe send in your CV and everything's fine up until they see your surname. So they look at your qualifications and look and say, oh, this person is suited. And then it's like, oh, the surname doesn't fit. Like, how do you say that? How do you say that name? And then they see you as a person, and then you're like, oh, you're a Black person. So even as a Black person, amongst other Black people, there's also people like, oh, I'm from the Caribbean, I am mixed race. So, so I guess you've highlighted that it's an ongoing struggle for people wherever they are. Just to kind of talk a little bit more about your characters, like, what was your favorite character to write in Gold Diggers?
That's a hard question. Yeah, it's a tough question. Because I guess you resonate with each of the characters in a different way. I guess maybe let me say Portia. I like writing her character. Portia.
Well, Portia had like a stroke of luck, didn't she? Just by that handbag, where she gets all of a sudden she assumes the identity of a South African, and she's able to get into a job, even though she's clean. Like, she's in the kitchen, I think. They then find that she can type, so she's now typing, and she literally turns her life around. I think her story is quite remarkable in that she comes from was it Plumtree? I hope I'm not confusing her with someone else. And then she travels obviously with her son, and she gets there and she finds that her husband has another wife or another woman who's there dominating, saying, "Oh, well, I am here now, so what must happen?" And her husband, she gets rejected basically because her husband is like, "No, you're going back to Zimbabwe with my son because South Africa is not a place for families." But clearly he's familying with another woman. But that is something that is also quite prevalent in our society, that, you find that people have either small houses or they go on to other places and they have other lives, which do not necessarily include the life that they were living back home. Like, do you feel like that is true of our society today? Do you think that is it an escape mechanism? Is it because people want to kind of have family, to have that belonging, or is it just an opportunity for some men? I won't say all men, but for some men to exercise patriarchy and be men. Now, what do you think about that?
I think this whole story, Portia, started a long time ago. Like, I'll talk about my grandfather, for instance. He worked in the mines.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked in the gold mines, yeah. So he would leave home and be gone for like 3 years, and then he would come back. You couldn't travel like back and forth. It wasn't that easy back then. He'd come back. He'd get my grandmother pregnant. He would go back. Maybe 2 more years would pass. He'd come back. And so a lot of women were left ekhaya. And it was not uncommon to hear
yeah.
Those two parallel worlds. And I don't think it was more of trying to exercise patriarchy. I mean, if someone's gone for 2 years, he's obviously going to find someone he exists with. I mean, let's be honest. And the thing is, but I mean, since then, I mean, migration is still there. But now the thing is, women also have, are able to now move with the men. It's unlike before. And a lot of women now don't want to be left behind. So she's by force, by fire. So you have women now following. So I mean, there are still women who are at home and the husband is in the UK. We still have those situations where you hear the husband is working in Australia. She's there. I mean, I have a friend, one of my close friends. He's based in Canada and his wife is back in Zim. And she hasn't been able to get the paperwork to cross. So you still, even people in our peers are still having those same struggles. It's not by choice, So you have these relationships where it's like long distance marriages as well. And so I think it's just a systematic problem as well, more than just people just wanting to whore or have fun, So I think there's a lot of aspects to it.
Yeah, because I think also on the flip side we see Uswongile and Philibon, right? Because she knows that he has a family in Limpopo, he's got 10 kids, but he goes on holidays, right? And I think because maybe we're reading it from Swongile's point of view, we kind of understand it. Okay, they're keeping each other company. And I think those are some of the conversations that we don't have because, but it's the reality. That is what is happening. So
yeah. People have arrangements. Or whatever. Friends with benefits, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, people do it. And it's just, I think it's just to fulfill a need at that point in time.
Yeah.
And can I ask you like a question on how you develop your characters? Do you like already have do you know, okay, so you're writing about, for example, if you're writing about Portia or Lindani, do you already have like how they end up in mind, or is that something that you develop as you progress? Like how tell us like what goes in your mind like when you're writing a book.
So with the Gold Diggers,
Mm-hmm.
I knew the story that I wanted to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a story of people leaving home and coming to South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew there wasn't a single story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people's journeys are different, but I wanted to capture, you know, at least try and capture most of it,
Mm-hmm.
of how people leave and how they end up here. So I knew the kind of the stories that I had to, you know, sort of tell. So it started from the story. Then I had to think, okay, who's going to tell that story? And
Right.
so I then had to build these characters.
Right.
And say, okay, who should tell this? Who's best placed to tell this story?
Mm-hmm.
And yada 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 yada. I think for a character like Uchamo, I mean, his character is modeled on something that actually happened. A Mozambican national who was actually burnt to death.
Yeah.
And so he had to die. So even before his character was born, you know, that was his end.
Right.
You know, and then with the other characters, you know, you just let them, you know, take the journey, and you know, as go, you kind of think, okay, you let it evolve and see how can it possibly end. And sometimes, you know, the character just gets a life of its own. That's how it goes. Yeah. But I mean, I think with this book, because there was already an end game in terms of what the message I'm trying to convey. So you know, your characters are kind of controlled in
Right.
that sense. Yeah. Like Chinai's story is tragic. It's supposed to be a tragedy. Yeah.
And I read somewhere that you literally kind of walk the streets of Hillbrow and to kind of get accustomed to the place, so that, you know, because it's true that when you do write, like you can almost see yourself like in that space, you know. That just to kind of go into Zimbabwe, like you described the journey from Mark's garage to obviously to the border. You're talking about all these places, you know, the suburbs, you know, Kumalo and all this, and giving us a bit of a running commentary as well about this place, it was named because of this. Is that kind of, did you also have in your mind like that journey like mapped out, or is it a journey that you maybe made before and it was quite easy for you to be like, okay, when you pass this place, there's this place? Or did you physically have to kind of, when you're writing the book, go from Matt's garage and you know, all the way to the border, for example?
I did. I think with my books, I like to like really live it. So I actually got on the bus and went on that journey.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, I traveled and I was writing notes, you know, all the way of things I saw. So it's, yeah, I'm very, in terms of the research, I'm very active about it. I mean, I would have loved to have been able to go through the wire as well, but it wasn't possible. You know, like I obviously couldn't cross illegally.
Yeah.
So I watched a lot of videos, YouTube. I read about, and I spoke to people's accounts, and I tried, you know, sort of piece it together in my head of what that crossing could have been like. And then in the end, I think because a lot of it wasn't clear, that's why I used Google to describe it, because a child wouldn't be able to recollect everything. So yeah, I like to research things so that you feel that you're also there. Just with that authenticity, yeah.
What was it about Lindani? Because Lindani has featured in your debut novel, The Polygamist. What was it about her that you wanted to kind of continue her story into the Gold Diggers?
The thing with Lindani, readers love her for whatever reason. It's got nothing to do with me. So they always like, what happened to Lindani? Like in The Polygamist, it's like she's like the popular one. So I just kind of felt like, okay, let me bring her into this book, you know. And even now, people are like, hey, please get Lindani out of jail or wherever she is. So there's always this thing. Ulindani, she's such a popular character for, I don't understand it, but readers seem to love her.
I think it's just her, you know, there's something about her. She's the person who kind of is a mothering figure for Gugule to, you know, then she seems to have, like, she is loved by Melissy. Again, you know, that's something that we don't see like a lot of in the book, in that whole affection between two people. And I feel like that their love is so pure. And then of course Givemore comes and messes everything up. And Givemore, if I could have my way with Givemore, like I'm telling you. But he messes things up for her, because I feel like if it hadn't, my feelings, if it hadn't been for him, like, I just wonder, like, could it have been like that, a fairy tale ending of, you know, these two people, they just deeply care about each other, they love each other, they'll be together, maybe they'll adopt Gugule too, you don't know. But Givemore came in and just messed things up. And you just see how her life then takes another turn. And, you know, she dies in Malaysia, doesn't she? So we can't, there isn't even hope for her coming back in another book, unfortunately.
The thing is, she got the death sentence, so it's not like they hang immediately. So she may be able to come back. Who knows? So she might come back.
Hint, hint. Okay, so can we talk a little bit more about you as a person? I think Nat had a few questions.
You say that I saw an interview where you say that you're an investment analyst by day. So do you still have a 9-to-5, or, you know, is writing your full-time gig?
Okay, so the investment analyst part ended in May 2018. So almost 2 years ago. Yeah. So now I'm actually writing full-time. Yeah. So yeah. So
exciting.
So is there another book that's in the works?
So I've just finished a book. So it's coming out in October. It's called A Family Affair.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you might have heard me tweet. I said one day I'm going to write a book about Ndebele men. So yeah, that's that book.
Okay, so can you give us a little taster, like just a little bit, like what is it about? What can we expect from that book?
So A Family Affair is about a family, the Mafus. They call it, the Mafu family. A family in Bulawayo. The dad is a pastor. 3 daughters. And yeah, so we take you through this journey with this family. And they look picture perfect, but behind the scenes, things start to unravel. Oh. So yeah.
And is it just set in Zim, or are we going to see them in different places as well?
No, that book is predominantly set in Zim, Bulawayo. Okay. I mean, obviously, they move, you know, out to other places, but it's predominantly Bulawayo from 2000. The book opens in 2001. But it's a Bulawayo story, so you can expect a lot of nostalgia when you read it. Yeah.
I love that.
I can't wait. And just a question about your writing. So, like, when did you start, and when did you sort of decide that, you know what, writing is a route that I want to pursue?
So I've always said, I mean, I think from as young as 8, you know, I was really writing stories, cutting pictures out of magazines, writing stories around them. So I think that seed was planted a long time ago. But I think it just wasn't, you know, encouraged. You know, our parents are like, you say you want to be a writer, they'll be like, nah. Any profession, kanya. You know how our parents are like.
Yeah.
And so it's not something I pursued at university. So this is how I ended up studying finance, you know. And there was actually no motivation for me to study finance. It just sounded, you know, interesting and unfamiliar for me. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll do this.
Yeah.
And so for me, the finance part was the profession, the thing that paid the bills. And I think I'm one of those people, like, you know, if I put my mind to something, I'll do it. And I guess I did it fairly well. But my real love was in the writing.
Yeah.
And I always wrote, behind the scenes. So, I never stopped doing that. So I think then The Polygamist was published
Yeah.
in 2012. And then, of course, you see, the thing is, when you're writing and working full time, you really don't have time for writing because, it's also a full time job in itself. And then you have this break where I don't write anything for like, a few years. There's quiet. I had a child in between. And so there's silence.
Yeah.
So, when I turned, it was like when I turned 40, that's when the Gold Diggers came out. You start to ask yourself those, questions. Where to from here? Okay, what do you really want to do? And I got retrenched actually just a month before my birthday.
Right.
And I look at it now and I think it's a blessing in disguise because, I think God was telling me, this, you need to, stop now.
Yeah.
And because after that, I started to write and I wrote and I've been writing. And I think, when they say like, invest in your passion, it will pay off sometime. I think it's true. It doesn't happen automatically. But I say to myself, I'm here 2 years later. I'm still alive. I can still pay the bills and there's the roof over my head. So obviously it's not as cushy as it used to be. It's different when now you work for yourself. But I found a way to make it work. And yeah, I just need to carry on because I get a lot of satisfaction from the writing. And yeah, and other opportunities, writing related opportunities have all opened up. So I think when you pursue your passion, it really does. The money will come later. I believe that now.
Yeah. And so just a question about, so you're passionate about writing from a young age, but I'm interested in how was your experience writing in Zim? Obviously doing that whilst you were studying and working. Do you feel like the door opened because you were in South Africa? Do you think you would have had a different experience if you had been in Zim in terms of being able to write and publish?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I tried to get published when I was in Zim and doors closed in my face. So I think moving here just, opened other doors. So yeah, because I think for me that actually was also a blessing in disguise because I don't think my writing would have taken off because it's not like I didn't write when I was there. I did, and actually the book, A Family Affair, is a book I started writing in my 20s.
Oh, really?
And I tried to get it published, and it in Zim, and it got rejected. And so, but I never like threw the manuscript away. I just reworked it again later, and and that's the one that's getting published. So so I think it worked out in the end. I mean, we're here now.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And what advice would you have for a young writer? Say someone like a young girl who's in Bulawayo right now, listening or watching this and is really passionate about writing, and maybe is experiencing the same things that you talked about just having the doors shut. What advice would you give to them in terms of a way forward right now?
I would say you just keep writing. Don't stop. You writing is one of those things you get better the more you do it, and the more time you devote to it. We live in a different age now in terms of internet access. You could be sitting in Bulawayo, but you can access someone in the UK. Publishers are available. You can, they're available online. They always have open calls for submissions. So I think you just have to be intentional now. If you really want to be published, you can actually get published. Follow people, the publishers, follow those forums. If there are competitions, submit, you have to proactively pursue it so you get your name out there. I mean, with the Polygamist, I couldn't get a publisher for it. That's why I self-published it. But that in itself opened doors for me, because when I then looked for the publisher for the Gold Diggers, people now knew my name. The Polygamist sold very well. So I'd already, my name was now out there, so it was easier. So I think if you're really, passionate about something, you just have to go for it, and you need to persevere. It's a tough. Writing's tough. I mean, rejections it's like being rejected by a lover, but you still have to get up and say, I'm good, and believe in yourself. Yeah, so it's tough. It's a tough career choice, I think.
And what books are you reading at the moment, or which authors are you excited about that are sort of like new and up and coming?
The book I'm going to start reading is All Drift by Naomi. Yeah, Naomi Sopel. Yeah, I think I got that name right. Yeah. I got that book recently, and I got some other books recently as well on my birthday. There's Mukiwa by Peter Godwin, I think. House of Stone by Christina Lamb, and another non-fiction book about Rhodesia, The Last Outpost. So I'm kind of trying to read more sort of books that speak to that Rhodesian era, because I think my next book, is actually going to be set in that pre-Rhodesia era up until now. So I'm kind of sort of like starting to do the research for that. So I'm also reading what has been written already and trying to see where I can fit in.
Yeah.
Do you ever get like, you obviously, like, I'm looking forward to Family Affair already. It sounds like it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to this one that you're doing research for now, like with Rhodesian times. But do you ever feel like some, I don't know how to describe it, but any anxiety when it comes to like putting out other books? Because you put out The Polygamist, you self-published it, well received. Gold Diggers, people love it. So there's almost that expectation that, Family Affair is going to be super amazing. Like, do you ever feel like, oh my goodness, am I not going to do you ever doubt yourself, or how do you quench those thoughts that come into your head that tell you that maybe, oh, you know what, this might not be good enough, or maybe you don't have that at all. You just know that this is a good book and it's going to be well received. Like, do you have any anxiety when you're putting new books up?
I had a lot of anxiety with the second book, because I think there was so much expectation with after The Polygamist. People thought it was such a brilliant book, and I thought I could never do better than that. And even now you often get some people saying no, but The Polygamist is better. But I'm just happy because The Gold Diggers is done well in its own right. So it stands on its own. So I think that was the anxiety I had, that I'll bomb with the second book. I guess it's like producing an album. You have your first album's a hit, and then you're afraid the second one. But now on the third one, I think I've found my mojo now. I'm more comfortable, so there's no anxiety anymore. So it's like I'm writing. It's just I don't have any issues. I'm just like, I'm doing this now. It's like this is it. Yeah, this is it.
Yeah. And just wanted to say happy belated birthday, by the way. We should have said that at the beginning.
No, thank you so much. I have the whole year to be 42, so it's fine.
But we're doing 2020 part 2 next year because so we're remaining the same ages next year.
Yeah, we're reclaiming what COVID has taken from us.
Yeah. What I wanted to say, Sue, is so thank you so much, sharing about the book and just the themes from the book. Just sort of like turning slightly. So social media, you're probably one of the more visible people on social media, and I really like that you drive conversation. There's a thread that you did which was about what is the one thing, or what are the things that people over 40 regret, which I mean, I thought that was so interesting. And yeah, so I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, so just on that topic, in terms of like, are you living your best life? Does it get better with age? What can you share with us?
I honestly do think it does. There's something about turning 40 that's liberating, in so many ways. And yeah, it's a good age to be in. And you look back and think, what was the whole fuss about? I'm happy in my 40s. I honestly am. And I think a lot of people have anxiety about getting older, but I feel like I've come into my skin. Like, I now fit, and that to me is the most comfortable place to be.
Yeah,
So and everything just falls. It's like fallen into place, and so I'm happy. I'm doing what I love. I have my son. And I suppose people will be like, okay, and the man, what about a man? I'm like, okay, maybe that will come. If it doesn't come, that's also okay. I'm not so stressed about, having a man. And, I honestly also think it's a time thing. I honestly don't have time for a relationship. I mean, writing takes up a lot of my time. I won't lie. And I don't know where I'd fit in the time to cater for a man. Because having a child was also, it's time being a mom is also time consuming. You need to give it time. I mean, I can't outsource someone to take care of my son for me. So I feel like I don't want to stretch myself too thin. And, if the love thing happen, it'll happen and it'll fall into place however it happens. But I'm not like actively out there looking, for a man. So yeah, that's basically me. So if you see me on Twitter saying, I'm single and happy, I really am. It's not like a little front, I honestly don't have time. Like, writing is consuming. And I think of how I used to write before I had a child. I mean, I could wake up in the morning and write until midnight. Sometimes I forget to eat.
Wow.
Because that's how consuming it can get. So, at times, like when you get into a story, you don't want to stop because you're thinking, the idea might go. So, but I remember I have to stop, I have to cook, I have to make sure my son gets a bath. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I kind of, and now with homeschooling, which complicates things, because before you would go to school in the morning and then I could write until from morning till 1, and then I pick it up. But now I have to juggle Microsoft Teams, so so my life is very full in that sense. So yeah, but like I'm saying, I mean, I still don't have time to read enough, and do my research. So there's a lot in my day.
Okay, so I wanted to get your thoughts, so both you and Xolie, to sort of chime in. I'm sure you guys saw this. I think Sue, I saw you commented on this. So Dr. Cindy, I think she does her DM to TL things where she posts scenarios that people share with her and want to get people's opinion. So I'm going to read it out, and then Sue, I'd like to get your thoughts. So this is the message that Dr. Cindy received. So the person said, I have a question and would like to hear how people would handle the situation. So this is the scenario: a woman with 2 children, each with their own father, separated from both. Baby daddy number 1 is well off. Baby daddy number 2 is struggling financially and tries to make ends meet. Baby daddy number 1 sends money for shoes his child asked for, or is just a gift costing 3,000 rands. as a mother, do you buy the 3,000 Rand shoes for the child, as the father said, or do you buy cheaper ones for both children? As a man, so this is a question for men, as a man, are you okay if you send money for your child and the mother decides to use the money for both children, thus resulting in your child not getting what you had wanted for them? This scenario includes everything: expensive school, expensive phones, or just an expensive lifestyle for the one child. How would you deal with this dynamic? I thought that was interesting. And Sue, I really enjoy your thoughts on these social issues. So I wanted to get, what do you think about that?
I was very clear in my response. I would split the money between the two, because the thing is, you live with two kids. I can't cause divisions in my home because, one child is getting and one child is not. I think if you're a mom, you just have to be equitable, Like I said to someone, so the other child can't eat pizza because the dad doesn't send pizza money. How does that work? And I've seen it in real life when people separate kids like that. So one child, the other one at Whitestone. How does, kids already, you cause dissension between them. So they're already wondering, but why? Why is one going there and why? And the different opportunities you expose. I just think it's not right.
Yeah.
And look, I understand where the men are coming from, saying, "Hey, but yeah." But the thing is, if you came into the picture and saw that I'm someone with a child, I mean, at some point you need to realize that you can't just say, okay, you're going to look after your own child. You have to look after both of them.
Yeah.
It's a package deal, a combo. You can't take what you want. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, for me, I would say it has to be fair. I can't. And if I can match the dad and say, okay, fine, Whitestone for Whitestone, that's fine. But if I can't, I'm just going to do what's fair. It's easy if I can match him. He buys the one a cell phone, then I buy the other one. But what if you can't match? What if your finance situation is different? You just have to do what's fair, because you also want harmony in your home. He doesn't live there. He just sends money and he goes and lives where he is. So if you have primary custody, I think you have a responsibility to be fair to both kids. That's how I would deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I was also thinking, like, I don't know what you guys think about this, because I was like, well, maybe the father should, if he wants to buy the expensive stuff, he should buy it, and but the money that he gives is for the mother's judgment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a difficult situation. I have seen those situations as well, where, and also sometimes it could be where the father doesn't necessarily expect the mother to split, but he's much wealthier, and when the other child goes there, they've got Xbox, PlayStation, and everything, and but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
I actually used to see it with my neighbor. Had a similar situation. So her baby daddy, one, didn't support at all, and then two was active. He's active in terms of coming to see the child, being there, buying stuff. And then the little one the other one was so miserable, and she used to come to my place a lot. Each time the other one would go, and I saw how it hurt her. So for me, it's damaging psychologically, because you start to think, where is my father? Why doesn't he do these things for me? Can you imagine a little child trying to deal with those kind of questions?
Yeah, it's too much.
The way we don't take kids to psychologists. Basically.
Yeah.
And you grow up with the damage. So yeah, I think as a mother you have to try your level best just to level the ground.
No, I agree with that. Like, it's too traumatic. Life is traumatic as it is, and then having to juggle family relations is never easy. But yeah, so from you, we're definitely looking forward to Family Affair in October 2020. I was going to say 2010. Jeez, this year, October 2020. So something to look forward to. Your book, Gold Diggers, is out. It's available on Amazon, it's on Audible. Can we talk a little bit about Audible, by the way? Do you, as an author, do you have any say about who reads your book?
No, I don't know why. You didn't like the girl who was reading.
No,
I like her.
I was very excited, to be honest, when I heard that, oh, Malaika, she's got an Ndebele surname as well.
Yeah.
Malaika who?
Ndlovu.
I was like, yes. But then it just comes to some pronunciations and it's just like.
Basically, Sue was saying for the next one, can Xolie and I do your Audible?
Go for it. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, Audibles are not even that popular, though, to be honest with you. I think it was something they wanted to try out.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, in terms of sales, it's a very, very slow. I don't know if people just don't like them. It's a slow sort of market. People still prefer to buy that book, than as opposed to listening to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting.
I have to say, like, I would listen to it only because of commuting and stuff. I would listen to it and then I will buy it. So I have already purchased. So I bought it on Audible. Then I'm getting the physical copy as well. And most likely then I will read it and scribe on it and then kind of write my thoughts in it as well. So I guess, I found Makosi interesting in that I was really excited. It's like, oh yes. But then even when she was pronouncing some words like Ukrawundi, it was just slightly a bit off. I was like, hey,
Bulawayo.
I'm like, no. I was like, okay. But yeah, no, so we're really looking forward to that. Is any last words that you'd like to share with your readers? Can we start a support group for those who read gold miners?
Gold diggers.
Gold diggers, sorry.
Yeah, you can start a support group. People always say to me, they were traumatized. And I was equally traumatized,
You can come.
And they say to me, will you write a sequel? And I say no, because I had to be in a dark place writing that book. So I don't want to go back there. It's just like,
it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had a conversation with them, and they were like, oh, the characters were not really like there were some characters that were not really given a complete ending stuff. But I was like, in essence, we know there's so many people that we know where we don't really know like what happens, whether they come to wherever they go, diaspora, like you don't really know what happens to so and so. You don't know. It's just like people just disappear into thin air. Like family, I have family who I don't know where they are. That's at some point, So I think I think for me personally, Gold Diggers is complete. In my head, it's complete.
That you're right when you say those incomplete endings that people speak about. It's true. You've heard that saying before.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what happened.
Yeah.
You don't know you'll never know.
Yeah.
So for me, we live with that. We don't have closure for some people. So that's why it was important to have those stories. Like with Tuli. We don't know what happened to her.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
There are many people like Tuli who just disappeared. You don't know. Like Umalume, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, did anyone send word? You don't know. Not knowing. So it's that kind of thing to say. We just there's some stories that never had a conclusion.
No, listen, thank you for such a great book. Thank you for highlighting so many issues that, we haven't really had a voice for. I'm certainly like my copy, I'm sending it back home. So I'm like, you guys, there's some things that we experience here in the diaspora that I may not necessarily say, but this is the way that this is a reality for many people. So thank you. It's a great book. We're looking forward to more. I'm getting The Polygamist as well, so I can read more about Lindani. But yeah, no, thank you very much. I don't know if you've got any last words for your readers.
No, thank you for reading me. I think that's the biggest compliment for any writer. And I hope you continue reading me. And yeah, so look out for A Family Affair later on this year. Thank you, ladies, for having me on your lovely podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue. Thank you.